I'm Sari Kimbell, and I've done just about everything in the food industry. I have helped hundreds of packaged food business entrepreneurs, and now I want to help you make your delicious dream a reality. Whether you want to be successful at farmers markets, online, or wholesale onto store shelves, food business success is your secret ingredient. I will show you how to avoid an expensive hobby and instead run a profitable food business. Now let's jump in. All right. Welcome back to the podcast. Today's guest is amazing, and I'm so excited to talk with Katie. So today I'm talking with food brand strategist extraordinaire and podcast host, Katie Mleziva. And she comes from years of steady progression at Fortune 500 companies in packaged goods, consumer packaged goods, and healthcare. And then she left the corporate world to pursue her entrepreneurial journey and has never looked back. She's excited every day to work with emerging natural food businesses and farms to set their brands apart and help more people get access to real food. She does this by using the processes she's created based on her big business background, but streamlined for what smaller, more nimble brands need to set themselves apart. She's driven to help food businesses go from making a great product to building a strong brand. So welcome, Katie.
Thank you so much for having me, Sari. It's great to be here.
Yes, we both have our podcast setups as podcast hosts. And I don't know, you have such a special place in my heart. Me on your podcast was my first podcast.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Guest.
Oh, that's so cool. Yes. And you know what? That is one, we should link to it because it's one of my best or highest downloaded podcast episodes. You did such a great job.
Thanks. Yeah. It was so fun. And I just remember us connecting, and I think we connected through Allie Ball, and
I think you're right.
We just had a strong connection, sharing, the ups and downs of being an entrepreneur, and formed our own little group.
Right. Absolutely. And I love that we can help some of the same brands too. So that is always fun.
We definitely, I know I get some new folks coming in from your Facebook group and vice versa.
Yeah, same.
And you have an amazing podcast. You're a couple years ahead of me, but you definitely were inspiring. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. It's 3 years this month. I can't believe it. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I think this is episode, this will be in the 30s anyway. Okay. I'm not sure what number, but it's crazy great to think like 30.
I know, that's so good. So good.
So. All right. Well, I think your last sentence of your bio really said it all. This month, we're focusing on brand strategy and making the customer the center of how we make our sales and grow our brand, but going from a great product to building a strong brand. And I think you're the best person I can think to talk about this.
Oh, thank you.
So maybe we'll start high level, and you could talk a little bit about defining brand strategy. What does a brand strategy really mean? Give us your take on that, since this is your expertise.
Yeah, good. Thanks. Some people think of branding as a logo, and I think it's becoming more and more common for people to understand that brands go beyond a logo. It's really the culmination of everything that you do in the marketplace and behind the scenes. And so we'll talk about that a little bit more, what I mean when it's, the front and back end of your business. But I really like to start with having people picture a Venn diagram. So 3 circles that are overlapping, and each circle has a C. So there's the consumer, the competitors, and your company. And what we're looking to do is to recognize what your competitors are doing, but then just focus on the intersection of the company and consumer circle and leave the competitors out of it, and really focus on how you can meet the consumer's needs in a way that your competitors either can't or won't. And that's really where the strength comes to set your brand apart in the market. So we take those insights and we really synthesize them into a positioning and a story and all these other things that, maybe the pieces of the brand strategy will come up as we talk today, but that really serves as the North Star. And that, like I mentioned a minute ago, really, it's not just about marketing. It's about everything that you do on the back end and the front end to deliver on your promises. So your operations can't do something that your marketing is contradicting, for example, and vice versa. I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about why this is so important as we get into it today. But that's the biggest thing, that it goes far, far beyond your visuals or just marketing. The brand strategy is really rooted in the function of big companies called brand management, where you are like the general manager and the hub of everything that's going on, and connecting all the cross-functional teams. So even if you're a solopreneur and you wear all of the hats, you're still that connection point, thinking about managing the brand and how all the different pieces need to play together.
Yeah. And I was just going to ask you. So, I mean, I know it sounds big, like brand strategy and,
It does.
big businesses. I mean, when I worked for Whole Foods Market, they have like the big people at the top doing brand strategy and all of these things. Because it really is that communication, that front end, but also, like you said, the back end of how customers are interacting with you. But can I do this as a small brand? I mean, I know you work with a lot of small brands. I work
do.
with early stage folks. So what are kind of the key things that they should be thinking about in developing a brand strategy?
Yeah. I'll first just quickly address that sometimes people say, is it either too early or too late to work on my brand strategy? And I always laugh and say, not just because I'm a brand strategist, but it's never too early or too late. So it can sound like a really intimidating term, but that's why I like to take those big business concepts and streamline them, because I want to give small businesses every advantage that they can to put these pieces together. And we'll talk about the benefits again, a little bit later, but it really does give you clarity and consistency and confidence to go and talk about your brand when you have all of these things in place. So it's not necessarily the right time to go spend, more than you can on brand strategy development. But as you're thinking about the different areas of your business to invest in, getting the fundamentals down is really key. And then as you hypothesize and test and learn, you can build those muscles. You've got the knowledge then of how to create this. And then, as your business needs to grow, you can then continue to refine your brand strategy. So that's a little bit of background, but I'll tell you specifically some of the things that are in it. So it's all organized the way that I do it. It's all organized around those 3 C's. So we look at your vision and your purpose and your values, and sort of that know thyself first. So what are you wanting to do and what are you really driven by? And then we look externally at the competition to figure out what everybody's doing and what nobody's doing. And I always kind of joke, like, if nobody's doing it, is it because it's a terrible idea or because you are just uniquely positioned with your experience and your ideas and the way that you've brought it to life? Maybe you're just, this is the time and you're the person, and why not? And so, that's that gap that we can identify. And there's some exercises to do that. And then moving into the consumers and identifying their needs and their insights. And, we used to look more at demographics. Now we really focus a lot on psychographics, the beliefs and behaviors. And that's, a lot of psychographics span traditional demographic, sort of, I don't know if stereotypes is the right word, but it's not as important, for example, if you're what gender you are or what age you are. If you do these beliefs and behaviors on a day-to-day basis, you might be a good candidate for a certain brand or product. The thing that we want to remember is that some people say, well, everybody's my consumer. And I know you hear that too.
Say that,
but isn't everyone? But you may want everyone to buy. This is like the best clarification that I can say, is that you may want everyone to buy, but you can't create your product for everyone, because then it will be meaningful to nobody. So what I like to do is look at a primary audience, and that's that core person that if you have an hour to spend or $1 to spend, that's the person that you need to find, because they are going to be so excited and shout from the rooftops about your brand, and and help you grow by being a big fan. And then there's also, if you picture kind of concentric circles, that's your core, and then you picture the people in the further out rungs, you want and need them to buy also to meet your revenue and profit goals. But they are not the primary person who you're designing for. That you'll get that halo effect with them. But so That's how I like to describe the consumer. And then from the company standpoint, that's where we have the inputs of your vision and your purpose and your values. Then we've got the competitive inputs, we've got the consumer inputs, and then we start to synthesize it all and say, okay, from looking at all of these things, what are our pillars? What value and what benefits are we really providing? What is the personality of our brand? What's the essence? If, it's sort of like a funnel that we take all these inputs and then we narrow it down till we've just chosen a couple of words that are at the very core of your brand and what it stands for. And then we can get big again and start to write the story and all the messages and all of that stuff. But does that explain sort of, starting wide and going narrow, and then we start to craft messages in the story to bring that back to life?
Right. Because like you call it the North Star, like we need something to guide it that's super simple, that's like really speaks to us and encapsulates all that we are in a couple of short words.
I know it's so hard. I think it's super fun, but it is really hard work.
It is why we need people like you.
Who think it's fun.
Help us with this. I mean, I do some brand strategy, and I have some, when we do refreshes or new logos and brands, it's like we do some of this work, but man, if people are able to do this work with you first and then come to me, oh my gosh, like, because you go a lot deeper and you have such great frameworks, and you're very like, you're a framework gal, which I love.
I am. It helps me organize all the thoughts. And I think that's part of why, that's the feedback I hear too, is that, that as entrepreneurs, all of us have a million ideas racing through our heads all the time.
Yeah.
And that's hard. It becomes clutter at times, and you don't know always what to focus on. And so rather than creating the wheel every time or recreating the wheel every time, when you've got these frameworks that you put your ideas through, and then you've got a word bank of the words that you use for your brand or your key messages that support your pillars and, all those outputs, then you don't have to recreate the wheel every time, whether you're working on a pitch deck or doing a job posting or interviewing or onboarding or marketing messaging or deciding what supplier to choose. It really is sort of that litmus test or a North Star to help you decide, make decisions across everything that you do, which is liberating.
Isn't that what we all want? I mean, we get into decision fatigue as entrepreneurs, and having something that just says, yep, that's in line with our values. Nope, that's not. And it just makes decision making so much easier.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's not like the tough stuff goes away, but you're right. It's so much easier when you have this. It takes the emotion out of it too, because, we are emotional, or maybe not everyone, but I get emotional because I care so much about my business and the people that I work with. But when you have this decision-making tool, sort of like a creative brief when you're doing design work, that if you've got this thing that you said, here's what it is, then when you're going back later, you can use your gut, but it helps you have something to refer to.
Yeah. Well, I know we've kind of alluded to it, but let's go ahead and just answer the question about why is this so important? Why does it really matter? Why is this something we should spend time on and resources on?
Yeah. Well, I think that when people are thinking about building a strong brand, one of the obvious things is that if you ever are thinking of selling your business, having a clear strategy outlined and your position in the market is really important. When you're working to get into retail accounts, having a clear positioning and story is really important, and knowing where you fit in the category and how you meet consumers' needs. Some of the more consumer-facing pieces are things like recognition, though. So, thinking about I know you heard me talk about this, the Bader-Meinhof effect, sort of that cumulative effect that, like when I got a new Silver Explorer, suddenly they're everywhere. Yes. It's the idea that once something's into your, consciousness, we tune a lot of stuff out during the day, but once it's in your consciousness, you start to notice it everywhere. Yes. So we want to use that phenomenon for your brand. And when you're consistent and show up, in a cohesive way, then people start to recognize you, and that builds. And then they can also, another benefit is word of mouth marketing. When they see you consistently, they know what to say to other people. It makes it stickier, and they, can describe it better to other people. So those are a couple of consumer facing reasons. And then going back internally, thinking about that clarity and confidence that we talked about a little bit earlier. Consistency doesn't have to be boring or repetitive. It just means that you show up in a way that your consumers or retailers or investors or, that they get it. They don't see you one day and you're, at one end of the spectrum, and they see you another day and you're completely off in another direction. They see that you have it together and that you're organized and, hopefully in a meaningful way that's relevant to the market. And so, that makes it exciting that you're able to focus on the things in your business that will really help fuel growth versus every time you do something, trying to figure out, what should I do?
Yeah. And I think about going to a buyer, pitching to a buyer, or we're working on a refresh and we want to do a whole slide deck for their wholesale, company or their distributor to help promote their brand. And it's like,
yeah,
it just helps you get really clear and you're not fumbling for all the words in the moment, right? When
absolutely.
you're nervous and it's just like, those are just there in the back of your mind. You're like, yep, I know who I am. I know the data story. I know how to present this. And it does help with that confidence a ton.
Yeah, it really does. And the thing that I love about it is that if you get new information that informs it, like you don't want to be, flying all over the place, changing willy-nilly. But if you get some information or, to your point, data that changes the outlook on things, then you make an update or a refresh. But you've got the foundation at least to have a starting point to say, okay, here's where we are confidently today. And then as new information comes in or you learn more about your consumers or something like that, then you can update and be testing and learning and growing.
Yeah. And speaking about like the repetition and the consistency with your marketing, I was thinking when you were talking about, the effect of, what was it called again?
Bader Meinhof.
Yes. Like at Whole Foods, we knew that like only like 10% of the signs that we would put up, out of all that congestion would be really seen.
Interesting.
And so making sure you had repetition. I'm sure you do it on the podcast. I know I will be doing it on the podcast where we're going to repeat certain concepts over and over and over again because we need to hear them and we want them to be consistent. And so I think brands need to do the same thing. And actually it could be a big relief to not always have to come up with like constant new original content, but it's okay to repeat. Like I'm thinking even on social media, like it's okay to repeat some of the same things and use the same photos, but with a different caption or, like repetition is actually okay. We like to, it helps us to solidify our opinion.
That is absolutely right. I mentioned the word bank earlier, but that's a nice way that if you, there could be 4 different ways to say something. And I'm not saying every single time you have to say it, one way, but if you have like the main way that you say it, then you might get sick of saying it that way. But to a consumer or, other stakeholder, that's just getting the seed planted. And so again, they can like right off the bat say, oh, that's that brand. That's how they say it. And so it doesn't have to be a tagline necessarily, but just the way that you talk about things, it makes it clear to other people. And then, back to the point of word of mouth, that they know how to refer you. So you're totally right. I definitely agree.
And if you're not clear on it, your customers surely won't be clear on it. So
don't make them guess, because I like to say like there is 1 foot either direction in the grocery store or online that, they'll just move on if they can't tell what you stand for or what you are representing.
So good. Well, I want to talk, we were talking before we started recording about this, I'm talking a lot about brand strategy and brand story here with some great guests. But, I was listening to one of your podcasts and I'll link up both of them that are so good. But number 74, you were kind of talking about your own experience getting into brand strategy. But you really talked about like making your customer the center of this. And I know that's one of your 3 C's, but I see that as, if the company, I feel like maybe as an entrepreneur, we all do this. We all make it about us, right? Because we're in it. Like it surely is about us, but ultimately it can't be all about our own values and our own history and all of the things, right? So how do you kind of talk about, how do you help people put their customer, remind them that their customer needs to be at the center?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that is one of the biggest differentiators that I can think of when you are making a great product. Most brands start with a great product because they wouldn't put something on the market that was just so.
Right.
I mean, some will, some,
Quality
are
is
all just marketing. But right, quality is usually the place where at least the brands that you and I work with
yes.
start. And so, and that is a good place to start. And it's usually um, a little bit more focused on the brand and the execution and the operations and getting everything just right. And that's okay. I'm not saying that that's not the right thing to do, but a brand and a strong brand that is building value is when the consumer is really at the center, to your point. So you're looking for those insights and focusing on not just the product attributes, which is what a product focuses more on, but a brand focuses more on those emotional benefits and emotional connections so that it's not a pure commodity or transactional play. So I feel plenty excited about buying certain products. Let's just say at the farmer's market. I love to go to the farmer's market. I know you do too. And
Yes.
so, there's, let's just say a soap company or, different produce vendors or whoever I'm buying from. I'm really excited to buy from them. But unless they tell me the story and give me a way to connect with them, it's a little bit more interchangeable. Now, maybe sometimes you make that personal connection too, and these are all steps towards building a strong brand. But the idea is that it's more product and product attribute focused versus brand is when it's more emotional connection focused. And that's just so important because that's where you get people actually seeking you out again and, following you to a different farmer's market, for example, versus
Yeah.
just buying whatever's there or ordering online
Or
after.
yeah.
Yep.
I mean, people are so quick to be like, I'm just going to put it up online, but you're asking people to take an extra step and go to your website and fill out their information. It's a lot harder. I mean, harder in quotes, right?
Right. Yeah.
More
We can
time
all do it.
consuming to go to Amazon rather, I can go to Amazon and put a whole bunch of things, or I can go to the grocery store and put a whole bunch of things in my cart and one checkout. But if you're asking people to go to your website and look at your stuff and you're not competing on price, of course.
Right.
It's pretty hard to compete on price on your own website and then pay the shipping or the additional fees, fill out all the information. Like there are a lot of steps in there and there has to be some additional connection beyond just the product.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Thinking about that experience, if I've done all that work to go to your website, then I'm not saying that you shouldn't just at least just get a website up there so that I can order if I want to.
Yeah.
But if as again, as you evolve and grow, having a reminder about why people love what you're doing. So as you're telling that story about your brand, it's not all about us, we, and I as the brand owner. It's inviting people into the story and they should be able to identify themselves in that story on your website. And so,
yes.
It's really good that you say that if I'm going to go through the work of going to each individual brand's website, excuse me, I need to be reminded and sort of get that payoff of like, oh, I'm so excited about this.
Yes, I know. Right. Yeah. It's such a big deal. And I don't know that people always think through that well. And I can tell pretty quickly when people are like, yeah, here's why I did this. And here's my history. And here's all about me, me, me. I don't care about that until later. Like make a connection with me. Tell me how it's going to help me as the customer.
Yeah. So I have two different exercises people can do. One is on the consistency piece. One is on that making the story about your consumer piece. So if I can just share quickly,
Yes,
the first one is called a one room test. And so what you can do is really pull as many things as you literally pull them into the same room, like a sell sheet or a banner from your farmer's market, or put your website up on a computer and your product packages, like the entire line, not the ones that you don't hardly sell, but like really put them all out there so that you can see the whole gamut of what your brand looks like, how it is when you're showing up. Are you consistent and cohesive? Do you have some work to do? Usually there are some places that people say, yeah, I've got a little bit of work to do over there. And either they knew it or they didn't. But at
Right.
least when you've got it all literally on the table, you can see where you could improve. Or maybe
Yeah.
you see that like it all looks the same, but the messaging is different. Or maybe you see that there really isn't much of a message.
Right.
So that's one exercise that can be really, really insightful for the brands that I've worked with. And then the other piece or exercise that you can do when you are looking at your existing website copy, for example. Now, first of all, again, there's no judgment here. Be easy on yourself when you're doing these exercises, but this is just to always be growing and getting better. But as you look at your website, look at some of the things that you're writing. And when you do see yourself talking about, we offer this and we do this and why we're different is all about us, think about how you might write that sentence flipped into the consumer benefit. So that can just, I mean, it's a really simple exercise, and maybe you recognize it first and aren't ready to fix it until you can think a little bit harder about what that benefit might be. But if you just go through, or maybe it's your social media posts, and start to think, okay, I said it this way and it's all about me, but how could I say that in, in the consumers, it's not in their voice, but like in directing it to them where
Yep.
they see themselves in it versus me talking to you. Instead, we're having a
Yeah.
conversation, if that
So
makes sense.
important. Yeah. You gotta, like, if I'm the one spending the money, you gotta bring me into the story, tell me why
Yes,
it's important to me, why I should open my wallet, offer a
exactly.
benefit. And I was also telling you, I listened to another one of your podcasts
Yeah.
about the pyramid, which was amazing. And people definitely should go listen to it, because we're not gonna obviously recap the whole thing. But could you just kind of
Yep.
share? Because
I can give the high level.
I didn't realize there were so many when I think about benefits, I mean, price is always one, of course, that we're motivated
Yeah.
by, but
Yeah. So I'll just do a really quick
yeah.
highlight. And this is the benefit or the value pyramid that was part of a study done by Bain Consulting. And so what they did was across industries, they boiled down a huge research study into what are the 30 benefits that consumers get from buying things. Could be services, could be products. They boiled it all down to 30 things when they kept saying, well, why does that matter? And why does that matter? And so, okay, so there's a pyramid with 30 things. You can imagine the base is bigger than the top. At the bottom are the really functional benefits of a product. So food, I'll just spoiler alert, the two most important things were quality and sensory appeal, which you can imagine it, again, most brands are looking for a quality product versus just low cost.
Yeah.
And then sensory appeal is everything that goes into, our senses and taste and smell and all of those things for food. So that's the base of the pyramid. And all the way up at the top of the pyramid, so you go through different levels of more and more emotional benefits. And then at the very top of the pyramid is self-transcendence. So, something bigger than myself. And the two places that brands get caught up are either playing at the bottom and staying in those more functional attributes, or they go straight to the top and they haven't earned their way up the pyramid. And
Right.
so the idea is that you've got to earn your way with trust and proving that you're really doing something, like delivering on these benefits, before you can just, be this really social mission brand. You've got to show that you're like, legit doing these things.
Yeah.
Can't be smoke and mirrors. And then on the flip side, though, if you stay just down in those technical, more attribute level pieces, it's a dangerous place to play, because everybody's saying the same thing at those levels. You might have a different
Mhm.
look or feel or founder story, but it would be great if you can link to that, and people can
Yeah.
also search for the Bain Consulting study on that, because it's not a super long paper, but it's just really interesting to read through.
Yeah.
And I will say one more thing is that usually in brand strategy, we really want to be focused. In this exercise, it's just one piece that we do in the whole thing. But in this exercise, the more pieces of value that you can hit on in each level, the better, because it makes people more loyal and less price sensitive. So that is what a lot of the people that we work with are looking for too, finding those people who value the things, similar things. And when we can really acknowledge what benefits our products and brands deliver, it tightens that connection.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you liked it,
I
because
loved
it's
it.
really
Yeah, it
meaningful,
was
I
so
think.
good. And it just gave me so many more ideas than some of, the usual ones that we use.
Yeah,
And
good.
Last month we were talking about all about money and kind of the challenges of kind of starting a business and
Right.
money mindset as well as practical things. But one of the questions I asked was like, are you okay with charging what you're charging for you know, your bread or your granola or your jam? I mean, I think that it can be a really sticky place for entrepreneurs because they
Mm,
have to and they believe in the quality of it, right? I don't think anybody that I'm working with doesn't believe in the quality, and same goes for your people. But I
right.
think that they got to layer in some more of these benefits to really feel confident of like, hell yeah, like this is worth every penny
Yes.
of it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what it reinforced for me was like, if I as a brand can reinforce my own benefits and my own value through that pyramid, then I'm going to feel more
Mhm.
confident too, saying,
Good
yes,
point.
here's why you should definitely spend, $9 on this
Yeah.
gluten-free muffin or whatever it is.
I
So,
agree. And the just one more thing on that is that another reason I like that pyramid is because once you've gone through and identified the things that you are adding value, you can also identify the next places that you would want to go. Maybe we're not doing this today, but where else would we want to
yeah.
go? And the other way you can use it is inspiring social media or email or other content creation because you can, it gives you, let's just say you're 15 out of the 30. It gives you 15 different things to say, thought starters on how do we deliver that benefit? Okay, here's the different ways we do that. And so it can help with that content creation.
Yeah. That's a great way to use that tool.
Yeah.
Inspiration and direction on where we want to
Yes, we
go.
all need it.
Well, I love that. We'll definitely link to that. And then you link to the study. So go check out Real Food
Great.
Brands podcast and we'll put all your links in the show notes. So how about we switch to talking about some specific examples, especially that you see with clients that you can share with us. I think we can get a lot out of listening to real world stories.
Yeah, one that I'm working with right now is really exciting. She is a top 8 allergy free baking mix company and she's just wonderful. I'm always so excited about the people that I work with because they're just really good people. And the cool thing with that is that she has life-threatening food allergies herself. And that's not the cool part, obviously. The cool part, though, is that she has worked tirelessly to deliver this product and build a brand to help other people with food allergies not have to go through the same things that she's been through and to make it really, really, really safe. And so it's exciting the place that we ended up, like the insights that she didn't even know that she was saying as she talked with me, that of course I grabbed onto because they were these pieces of gold, but she couldn't see it because she was too close to it. And so we wove that through her pillars and her story, and now we've got a really differentiated positioning. And she said, I'm re-energized about my brand
Mm,
again. I'm so excited to go get this out in the world and to like go get it instead of feeling the heaviness of everything that was related to it. And that was so exciting to me because, this is more than a job to me. Like I know, again, like you just really love what you do and the people that you work with. And so those are the things like when people feel kind of worn down, like this can be a hard business. And I think it can be really refreshing when you can, again, take all of those pieces out of your head and connect the dots and, sort of glue it all together and synthesize it and get that clarity that makes you feel energized again. I think that's really exciting.
yeah.
Um, and another example, I know that the folks that Unwrapped also.
Hmm.
And that was another fun example because they had a really good idea of what they, a good, example because had a good idea of where they were going and what they wanted, but they just needed those frameworks to put it through. So whereas the first person I talked about, we've been working one-on-one, they used my more DIY, guided DIY kind of process because they just needed a little help to get through and have those frameworks to hang their ideas on and, and pull new ideas out. And so that is exciting too, because then they were able to work with their package designer to say, okay, here's the key things that we want to communicate. And I love their new packaging or their whole new brand identity. So the thing there is that it's nice that when you're working with partners that you give them, sort of a sandbox to play in. I like to say we don't tell them to use the blue shovel and the red scoop, but we say like, here's the tools that you have. Here's about how big the sandbox is. Maybe you can surprise me with something else, but here's basically where we're playing. And the designers that I know really appreciate that. And they feel like they have room to be creative then knowing basically what their client is looking for. And I think that helps you be more efficient. So the time and money that you spend on your brand strategy, that's just one example, but it can help you be so much more efficient with the other partners that you work with, whether on the operations side or marketing side.
Same goes for, that would apply, definitely for graphic design, but also social media. If you have anybody helping you with social media or writing. And actually, I'm working with I've worked with Jessica with Fireworks Butters for a while. A number of years, but I know she has been doing your program as well. And her brand refresh is
oh my gosh,
amazing.
I'm obsessed with it. I just look at it sometimes and I messaged her one night and I'm like, Jessica, do you just love it? Like I just love it.
I know. We narrowed it down, from all the choices, but and we're just finishing up all of her farmers market materials and everything. And it just looks phenomenal. But to your point, it definitely re-energized her to get those graphics. Good. But that's the visual fun piece, but also she was guided by those pillars and those core values and all of those pieces that you offer in your program and people thinking about those and getting them on paper. We do all of this work in our head, but it's so important to get it out on paper. And then we can also share it with all of these partners and make your life so much easier. Yes. And deliver better quality items. And now we have great copywriting and it's all guided by these values and the brand identity.
That's a great example. I'm so glad because we did have a one-on-one session, but she did the version where it's almost completely, or there's videos, but so there's these different options depending on budgets and preferences. And, but I'm so happy you brought up that example because it makes me so happy. It's really good design work and I'm glad to have played some role in it. With her using the process.
Be like, I'm doing Katie's work. And I'm like, oh, yay.
That's really good. That is good.
So, and you have your Facebook group where I'm sure you see a lot of these aha moments too, where people are talking about brand and.
Yeah, it's kind of fun. Someone just posted things like, I think that I think that my branding is pretty cohesive. And he showed his product and his shipper or, display, not a packaging shipper, like the display box. And it's, it's great. It's fun to bounce ideas around. And I'm going to be focusing the conversation more and more on the brand strategy piece and bringing your brand to life because there are a lot of Facebook groups that are available, and I think each has their own niche. And I'm going to follow my own advice, I think, and focus the conversation there even further to things like that because I don't see that conversation happening everywhere. So.
Yeah, well, it's scary to niche, right? That we could say that for anybody, all of us included.
Totally. That is another podcast. I used to be more general in my approach, but I really once you are focused on the things that are your, some people say zone of genius or whatever lights you up, or it's just, you can operate at a higher level all the time, which is sort of a plug for, you and I were talking about building our teams, and it is when you can to have the right help at the right time. It is really important so that you can focus on what lights you up the most and what needs to be you doing it.
Right. Yeah. Figure out what you should be doing and then, let everybody else do their thing. But, I mean, that gets back to that target customer, and you and I definitely have to go round and round with people on why it's so important to choose a target customer. And I know when I finally was like, nope, here's what I do, here's who I serve, and it's really uncomfortable, and you don't want, you want to do everything. But I guess, I mean, I heard a quote about like good branding, good marketing should be polarizing to some extent. Like, not that you're going out and being obscene and trying to,
Yeah, and
really
some people are. That's not that's not my style, but you're right. Yeah. So that people can be attracted, people who know that you are their person, that they can see it and feel it. Yeah, I do agree with that.
Yep. Next. It's like, I know where my cutoff is. And it's like, nope, that's not who I help. Go talk to Allie Ball, or, take her program, or no, go talk to this consultant. But it helps me to be so much more focused on, I serve people with an idea or very early stage, and that's who I help. And that's my zone of genius. And
absolutely. Back to that word of mouth that I was talking about, for the listeners too, but that helps. I know who to send your way also, so I think that's just, all of this is just good business, whether you are doing it for your food business, or you're a consultant listening, or, you have a nonprofit or a school organization that you help on the side. All of these principles really do apply across industries.
Yeah. So I know you've had different programs along the way. So tell us more about how people could work with you. And I love that you do have kind of different levels, different tiers based on people's budgets. And so tell me what you're up to. I feel like we haven't actually caught up about business or personal in a while.
It's been too long. The foundations of what I talked about today are the same principles, no matter how we work together. So there's, similar things you'll hear on the podcast, which is free, and in the Facebook group, which is free, all the way to, the one-on-one work where I'm researching ideas and bringing them to you. Every option is collaborative, because, the client is the person who is the expert on their business. I can facilitate differently depending on, again, needs and budget and timelines. But there is that one-on-one work. And then there's also group options, and I'm partnering with the Food Finance Institute to do a program in late April, where it's a 3-day intensive program. So we're going to do that once a quarter. So even if this podcast comes out after April, people can stay tuned. There's the range. I mean, and then I even do one-off strategy sessions where it's not that we will be able to create your whole brand strategy in an hour. But I just had a session yesterday, somebody had been following along on the podcast and he had laid it all out. And during the hour, we went through it together and talked through it. And so that was wonderful, because again, different budgets and different approaches. And, I'm excited to work with people at different stages, from, to your point, early ideas to, where we do the more intensive, comprehensive brand strategy work together. A lot of times people are either, just starting out and really want to invest and set the foundation strong from the get-go, or they are transitioning either from local to regional or regional to national, and know that to get to that next level, they've got to do something different and have that more, a stronger brand. So those are kind of the two things that I see in terms of what sparks people to come to me. And then we figure out what that right spot is together. But the best way to get in touch is to download a free brand checkup that I have, because that ties to everything that we're talking about today, where it's 25 questions that you can rate yourself 1, 2, or 3 on, in terms of different areas of the business with your brand, from setting it to integrating your business around it. And so, you don't have to send that to me, you sure can. But if you download that, then you'll be on my email list, and you'll be able to, I only email once or twice a month, so I won't inundate you, but you'll be able to see what the different offers are that I've got going on.
Perfect. Yeah. And then you have the Facebook group. What's the name of that? So people can find
it's called the Real Food Brands Marketing Roundtable.
Yes. And then the podcast by the same name, and you're on Instagram.
Yep. It's Real Food Brands. Try to be that consistency. Try to be consistent everywhere. Yep.
Yes, I know. I always when people come and they have like one handle for Facebook and one for, Instagram and a different website. And it's like, I know it's hard sometimes, but as much as possible, let's try to come out of the gate with the same thing.
That I think that's a good point for anyone who has an idea now and it's really early on, or maybe you've got a new line extension idea or a new product idea, even if you're an established brand, but you like reserving the Instagram hook or handle and Facebook page and all of those things, and obviously buying the URL. I do all those things every time I have an idea. Just
I know it's like $12, get the URL,
just grab it. Yeah.
You can set up a private. You can turn the Facebook group or the Facebook page to
you don't have to do
unpublished, and then Instagram can just sit there.
Yeah. But at least you've got that for that consistency's sake, like you just mentioned.
Good points.
Yeah.
So when we talk about people just starting out, what is that kind of piece, that nugget you want to leave people with that they really, should be thinking about? Like what advice would you recommend? Would you give somebody?
Yeah. I think you actually said it is one of the things that I would recommend is really writing this stuff down. So whether you're going to do a formal brand strategy process with me or someone else, or read a book on brand strategy, it's really the idea of documenting these things and getting it out on paper, because something sort of magical happens between your brain and either, your fingers, whether you're writing or typing. And when you have to put words to things, and if you're talking to someone else, that's another layer of it, then you're bouncing ideas back and forth. But anyway, the words that you land on can really start to help take you to a different place than before you started writing. So, So I really like that idea of, go through the frameworks, but just really write it down. And if you're looking for those frameworks that I use, I'm happy to talk more to people. But again, I just want people to do the work. And so and writing it down, it is one of the best ways to make sure that your vision is really meeting the needs of the consumers in a way that your competitors can't or won't.
I love it. I love that tagline. I hear that a lot from you, but I love it. It's your repetition, but it's good.
It's my repetition. Yeah.
We need to hear it over and over again.
Gotta walk the walk.
Getting in there. I'm sure people are like, oh, there they go again. Because I'm always like, get a piece of paper and a pen. I know that you want to do this in your brain. And I'm always giving people writing ideas and exercises on this podcast. I can't escape it
because it's true.
I know, and I wanted to resist it for so long as an entrepreneur, and every amazing entrepreneur, business person out there will tell you that this is everything, to put it on paper. So
it is.
Do it.
I just engaged somebody to help me. It's a little bit painful because I feel like I should be able to do it myself, but I just hired somebody to help me with some of this because it's hard to take yourself through it. Not the brand strategy side as much as like the vision, mission, and values. It's good to revisit it every now and then, even if you've got this down, but to build on it and continue to learn and iterate, and getting that outside perspective too can be really insightful. Having somebody
really can. Yeah, just like you said. Write it down, but then talk about it. But it's great to talk about with friends and family, but hey, even better to talk about it with somebody who like does this all the time.
And knows what questions to ask.
So I think all of those things are really helpful when you get serious about creating a cohesive, engaging brand story.
Yeah,
awesome.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for joining me, Katie. It's been so fun to see your face.
Thank you. Yes, you too. It has been really
too long, because we were going to get together last year in April, right? We were trying to figure out for food finance.
Yes. We were going to meet in Madison, and then the world shut down.
And I was like, I'm going to finally meet Katie in person.
I know that was...
And then no.
Someday, Sari.
Someday we will do it, and we will like be nonstop chattering.
People around us.
Well, awesome. Well, thank you so much again for being here. And I hope you have a fantastic day.
Yeah, thank you. You too.
Are you ready to start that delicious idea that you make in your home kitchen or grow your existing packaged food business and take it to the next level? The most successful food business entrepreneurs have support, guidance, focus, and accountability to help them make it happen quickly without wasting time or money. Plus, I think starting your packaged food business should actually be fun. Food business success is your secret ingredient to creating your food business dream. Please don't go this alone. Check out the private free Food Business Success Facebook group to connect with other foodpreneurs, get your questions answered quickly, share your wins, and receive special training and tools I only share inside the private community. Just search for Food Business Success on Facebook or get the link in the show notes. Curious about how Food Business Success can help you? Head over to foodbizsuccess.com and fill out the application to see if you're a great fit for the program. Together, let's make your food business dream a reality.